Folks, buckle up, because today we're diving headfirst into the economic dumpster fire that is France in 2025. The numbers are in, the spin doctors are out, and your boy Boss Economics is here to cut through the government's pathetic excuses and deliver the raw, unfiltered truth. We've got stagnant growth, trade wars, political chaos, and a government that's managing the economy like a drunk toddler steering a shopping cart. Let's break it all down, from the surface-level clownery to the deep-rooted systemic failures, and trust me, there's plenty of blame to go around. Oh, France, the land of croissants, wine, and apparently, economic stagnation so pathetic it could make a snail look like a speed demon. The latest GDP numbers for Q1 2025 are out, courtesy of INSEE, and let me tell you, they're about as exciting as watching paint dry in a recession. France's GDP grew by a whopping, wait for it, 0.1% in the first quarter of 2025, after shrinking by the same pathetic amount in Q4 2024. That's right, folks, France is basically running in place, huffing and puffing, while the rest of the world watches in bewildered amusement. But here's the kicker, even this measly 0.1% growth isn't because of anything brilliant the French government or businesses did. Nope. It's all thanks to companies hoarding inventories like doomsday preppers. Domestic demand. Flat as a pancake. Trade. A complete disaster, dragging growth down faster than you can say, tariff tantrum. And if you think this is just a France problem, think again, the entire Eurozone is teetering on the edge of a cliff, with growth expected to stagnate at 0.2% for the same period. But don't worry, folks, the government's got this under control, said no one ever. Let's start with the most glaring, in-your-face economic disaster, global trade tensions. And who do we have to thank for this chaos? Oh, just the usual suspect, Donald Trump, back in the White House in 2025, swinging his tariff hammer like a kid who just discovered a new toy. On April 2, 2025, Trump announced a fresh round of tariffs, targeting everything from French wine to German cars, because apparently, the best way to make America great again is to kneecap your allies' economies. But wait, plot twist. Many of these tariffs are now paused pending negotiations, because nothing screams economic stability like a president who governs via Twitter tantrums and U-turns. Now, let's be real, France's economy was already wheezing before Trump's tariff threats. But these trade shenanigans have turned a bad situation into a full-blown catastrophe. Exports in Q1 2025 dropped by 0.7%, and investment from businesses, households, and the public sector. Down the drain. Companies aren't investing because they have no idea what's coming next. Will tariffs hit, or won't they? It's like trying to play chess while your opponent keeps flipping the board. And let's not forget, France isn't alone. Germany, Italy, and the entire Eurozone are bracing for the fallout, with Germany's industrial production already down 2.1% year-on-year in March 2025, according to the status, thanks to trade uncertainty. But here's where the French government deserves a gold medal in incompetence. Instead of fighting tooth and nail to protect French exporters or diversify trade partners, they've thrown up their hands and slashed their 2025 growth forecast from 0.9% to 0.7%. Oh, and to top it off, they've decided now is the perfect time for more spending cuts to rein in the budget deficit. Because nothing screams economic recovery like austerity during a trade war, right? It's like trying to fix a broken leg by cutting off the other one. Bravo, MES Amos, bravo. Now, let's peel back the layers of this economic onion, because the stench of government mismanagement is making my eyes water. France's economy isn't just suffering from external shocks like trade wars, it's being actively sabotaged by its own leaders. Remember that political crisis in late 2024 that delayed the implementation of fiscal measures for 2025? Yeah, that's still haunting the economy like a bad hangover. The French government was so busy infighting and navel-gazing that they couldn't even agree on a budget, let alone a coherent economic strategy. The result? Businesses and households are paralyzed by uncertainty, wondering if tax hikes are around the corner or if the government will finally get its act together. And let's talk about consumer spending, the so-called traditional motor of France's economy. In March 2025, consumer spending fell by 1% from the previous month, hitting its lowest level since November 2014, outside of pandemic distortions. Economists were expecting a modest 0.1% increase, but instead, they got a face full of reality. To make matters worse, INSEE revised down February's numbers to a 0.2% decline, meaning French consumers are tightening their belts faster than you can say, croissant inflation. Why? Because households are scared, folks. With political instability, trade wars, and the government hinting at austerity, who in their right mind would splurge on anything beyond the bare necessities? But wait, there's more. The government's response to all this is straight out of the austerity playbook of economic disasters. Instead of boosting public investment or cutting taxes to stimulate demand, they're doubling down on spending cuts to shrink the budget deficit. Now, I'm all for fiscal responsibility, but there's a time and a place, and this ain't it. According to the OECD, France's budget deficit is projected to hit 5.5% of GDP in 2025, one of the highest in the Eurozone. But here's the thing, slashing spending in a stagnant economy doesn't fix the deficit, it just makes the economy worse, which in turn makes the deficit worse. It's basic math, folks, but apparently, the French government flunked that class. Now, let's zoom out and look at the big picture, because France's economic woes aren't just a product of bad luck or bad policy, they're the result of deep, systemic failures that have been festering for years. First off, France's economy is dangerously dependent on consumer spending, which accounts for over 50% of GDP, according to World Bank data. When consumers get spooked, as they are now, the whole economy grinds to a halt. Compare that to Germany, where exports drive growth, or the US, where innovation and investment play a bigger role. France's over-reliance on domestic demand leaves it vulnerable to shocks, and the government has done squat to diversify the economy. Second, let's talk about competitiveness. France's labor market is still riddled with rigidities, despite years of so-called reforms. The unemployment rate in Q1 2025 stood at 7.4%, according to Eurostat, well above the Eurozone average of 6.5%. High labor costs and restrictive regulations make it hard for businesses to hire, invest, or innovate, especially in a global trade war. And don't even get me started on France's tax burden, which is among the highest in the OECD, with a tax-to-GDP ratio of 46.1% in 2024. Compare that to the US at 27.7% or Germany at 39.3%. Is it any wonder businesses are holding back on investment? And finally, there's the elephant in the room, the Eurozone itself. France is shackled to a currency union that's structurally flawed, with no fiscal union to back it up. When Germany's economy sneezes, France catches a cold, but the European Central Bank, ECB, can't tailor monetary policy to France's specific needs. The ECB's benchmark interest rate, still at 3.5% in April 2025, is too tight for a struggling economy like France but too loose for Germany, which is grappling with inflation pressures. The result? France gets the worst of both worlds, high borrowing costs and no growth. So, what's the takeaway, folks? France's economy is a mess, and the government is pouring gasoline on the fire. Trade wars, political chaos, and austerity are bad enough, but they're just symptoms of deeper problems, structural weaknesses, over-reliance on consumer spending, and a dysfunctional Eurozone. And instead of tackling these root causes, the French government is busy playing whack-a-mole with short-term fixes that only make things worse. Here's my advice to the government, stop with the austerity nonsense and start investing in the future. Cut taxes, boost public investment in infrastructure and green tech, and reform the labor market to make France competitive again. And for the love of croissants, diversify your trade partners. China and India are growing at 5% and 6% respectively in 2025, according to IMF projections, so why not tap into those markets instead of begging Trump for mercy? To my viewers, whether you're a regular Joe worried about your savings or a finance pro trying to navigate this mess, here's the bottom line, don't trust the government to fix this. Protect your assets, diversify your investments, and stay informed, because if France's leaders keep this up, we're in for a bumpy ride. That's all for today, folks. If you liked this video, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell, because here at Boss Economics World, we're always calling out the economic nonsense so you don't have to. Until next time, stay smart, stay skeptical, and stay one step ahead of the clowns running the show.